talk more about your thing later on. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the January 22nd community call here at MakerDAO. At this call, we cover everything that's going on in the Maker universe, everything from real-life events to partnerships, community mentions, some highlights, pretty much the whole gamut. And we do this every week on Tuesdays, so feel free. It's one of our 2 weekly calls that we host that are open to the public. There's this one, and then we have a governance and risk meeting on Thursdays. It's a little bit less consistent, but it does happen nearly every Thursday. We're about 19 episodes or weeks in, and it's fascinating. It's really fascinating, but I'll talk about that meeting more later on. But before I get started, let me see who's in here. All right, actually, yeah, so Mariana, our other community manager, and Lenka both will not be here. Usually they're here, so I'll be covering for them. So I guess I'll first go over some of the events that are going to be going on. So in a couple of weeks, we have ETH Denver in Denver, Colorado in the States. That's going to be really exciting because there's a lot of Ethereum people that are based in the US, and a lot of people are coming there, and we have a lot of really cool stuff in the works. For example, we're going to be doing a local coin there called BuffDAI, and it's going to be using Austin Griffith's burner wallet, and we're going to be doing a bunch of events surrounding that, and everybody at the event is actually going to get a bit of that. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. Lenka has a local startup event tonight. That's why she's not coming. It's a community building thing in Copenhagen. And then on January 26th, she has the CPH FinTech reception. I think that's also in Copenhagen. And then at the end of January, she's joining the Blockchain Week Berlin. And that's Mariano, our community manager, who's usually on these calls, is actually going to be speaking there in Berlin. So he's going to be flying out from South America, from Buenos Aires, I think. I think that's where he's based. 7th to the 8th of February, Rune, our CEO, and Martin Lundfall, one of our formal verification developer guys, they're going to speak in Zug at the M1 conference, which is a really, really great conference because there's going to be a lot of people that are not necessarily siloed into the blockchain space, but a lot of traditional finance people there as well. I'm kind of a little confused about these notes. All right, cool. Then in mid-February, we're planning, mid-February for ETH Denver, we're going to be having a dappy hour. So it's going to be like 300 or 400 people. Everybody's going to be able to pay for their drinks and DAI. We've had a couple of these in the past, and they're a lot of fun. So definitely, if you are in Denver for that, come out. We have Du, our Korean community manager. He's speaking at the China Blockchain Expert event on January 24th in a couple of days. And then Jocelyn and Michael, I'm pretty sure Jocelyn is our Asian rep. Like, I can't remember exactly where she is, but yeah, she's in Singapore she's leaving today, but from the 19th to the 22nd of January, she was at the Binance Hackathon and conference in Singapore. She actually got a couple of pictures with CZ. It was pretty cute. It's fun. So they did that. Michael Elliott judging at the Binance Safu Final Hackathon alongside other high-profile judges, including CZ, Jeff Garzik, ex-Bitcoin core developer, and Jocelyn and Mike were there. So, dun. All right, yeah, that's pretty much it for events. Nothing too crazy, but I'm really just so excited for ETH Denver. All right, so we're gonna go over some technical milestones, online events, notables, partnerships, new hires, all that kind of stuff. So new hires, last year we were really ramping up the new hires here at MakerDAO, but for the last couple of weeks it's been pretty quiet, so no new hires. OnToken is doing a giveaway for opening CDPs from January 16th to today at 12 p.m. UTC plus 8. So I actually don't know if it passed. I think there's another 4 hours on the clock. No, probably until 12 hours from now. Yeah, I'm not sure. UTC plus 8, 12 p.m. Figure it out. But they're doing a giveaway to anybody opening CDPs through them. And they actually posted a tweet today saying that almost all the CDPs that were open since January 16th were actually created through their portal. So that's pretty cool. Kyber Swap is rewarding CDPs, well, users who open CDPs in December. I think it's like $5 a CDP. I don't know why, but good for them. definitely helps spread the word and get people to start using these things. CDPs obviously are not for everybody. I just want to say that if you are just a regular person and you want to use a CDP, definitely be fully aware of the risks involved. Take steps to really ensure that you're not going to put yourself in some sort of situation where you're not expecting. So I know actually a lot of my friends took out CDPs in December and January and February of like last year, and they had a hell of a time protecting them. Let me tell you, 90% market crash is not fun when you have a CDP, right, Andrew? Yeah, Andrew's laughing. All right, but all right, so that's about it for partnerships. There's nothing really too crazy that happened this week. Some highlights from the community. We have a CDP equalizer tool that was made by a Reddit user by the name of Franz Van Horn. So the tool is meant to watch your CDP, and it's meant to basically automatically rebalance it to the specified collateralization ratio that you set. But just be aware that this tool requires the input of your actual private key, so it's still very much in testing, and it's very much an alpha tool, and it's never just use third-party tools. Definitely do your research, maybe test them out with small amounts, but I see these things coming out, and I think this is really what's just going to be possible on a far more legitimate level a few years into the future once these things are really developed, audited, and like polished up for retail use. But there's going to be so many cool things like equalizers, basically like automatically rebalancing your personal CDP just with some software, no people involved. There was also a DAI shell, which was I think it's like command prompt. It's an interactive shell and command line interface for DAI.js. And that was also submitted on our Reddit by a user by the name of TarXVZF. So definitely check that out if you're interested. We have a couple of articles that came out. So at MakerDAO, on our Medium, we've been hosting guest articles. So last month, like late December, we had a user by the name of Delonte. He posted this really captivating comment about his story of using a CDP to refinance his home mortgage, and we actually invited him to write out a longer post on this use case, and it's called Lender of First Resort. And I'll actually post a link here in the chat. By the way, guys, I'm gonna go through just the chat a little bit later, so we're gonna open it up just for free-form discussion, questions, anything you guys want. So if you have anything that you want me to address, definitely feel free to put it up in the chat. So, all right, besides the Lender of First Resort Medium post, we also have a Medium post by our friends at Instadap and MakerScan. So Someway Jane, him and his team have won a handful of hackathons that we had put on, and they've been really killing it. So their platform, Instadap, actually is just like a third-party UI for CDPs. They have MakerScan, which is like the equivalent of Maker.tools. It's also just a data aggregator and does visualizations of data. And also they're just putting out so many cool tools. Like they made it super easy for you to pay or add collateral to CDPs that aren't yours. They're actually going to be coming out with like a multi-sig version of a CDP soon. They're going to be, they just have a ton of stuff in the works. Definitely follow them. And I'm excited to see more groups like them pop out, because ultimately they make a really interesting point. MakerDAO is ultimately a protocol, so it doesn't live on its own. Anybody can use it as a backend for their front end user interface. So I expect to see a lot of third-party CDP portals in the coming years. So that's really exciting. Their Medium post definitely brought it into perspective for me. Let's see what else. We have Maker mentioned on Nuggets News for the top coins of 2019. That's cool. Nugget, he is a pretty great fan. I've seen him in our Rocket Chat a bunch. Definitely a smart dude. Check out his YouTube. All right. Besides that, there were also another couple of mentions. Vasily Sumanov for Tech Nomad wrote an article about basically DAI accumulating 1.7 million in ETH in reserves, and it was a pretty cool article. So I'll post it up in the chat. All right. And then we also got a shout out for being, quote, the most successful DeFi protocol and the most successful application on Ethereum in 2018, and quote, by Josh Stark, Evan Van Ness, and Daniel Zackerson in their like collaborative article of the year in Ethereum that came out. When did it come out? On the 16th of January. So just about a week ago. I will also post that in the chat for you guys to check out. So yeah, they made the point that over the last year, DAI survived a 94% fall in the value of its underlying collateral, which is like really insane if you think about it. The system was battle tested in the first few months of its launch and appeared to have functioned as intended. It has quickly become a core piece of infrastructure for many Ethereum applications. So Ethereum is interesting because it actually has a few different like subsets of like use cases, and DeFi or decentralized finance is definitely a huge one because after all, cryptocurrency is programmable money, and that's always been the vision even from when Bitcoin was like the one and only. So to see DeFi really spreading before Ethereum scales, spreading and like developing at the rate that it has is really encouraging for that macro crypto economic view of this very well might be a parallel sort of infrastructure for economies to survive on. It's so exciting. But yeah, 94% fall. And, it's kind of serendipitous that DAI launched when it did, because it launched right at the peak of the bubble. And it literally just stayed at $1. No funny business, even at relatively low liquidity, relatively low supply, relatively low everything, still survived. And it's only going to get stronger when multi-collateral DAI comes out. So I'm super excited for that. Besides that, there's not that much else. So I'm going to give it over to you guys. I'm going to check out the chat. Oh, Ashley Schapp, our biz dev, one person from our biz dev team is here. Dun, dun, dun. All right,
Hi, guys.
Cool, yeah. Where are you?
I'm in an Uber on my way to the office.
Nice.
But
yeah, Ashley is based in New York.
Yeah. I was just curious if anyone that's here like works on crypto projects or works in related fields, or yeah, I'm just kind of curious, what brings everybody here really.
Well, me and Daniel were talking. He's actually the CTO of a fintech startup in Indonesia that does student loans to engineering, computer science, and like STEM field students, right? Daniel, you want to speak to that a bit?
Yep. I think just building CRUD apps isn't that interesting, so that's how I relax at night.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I see Matthew Hamilton. He's a product manager at PayBear, which is pretty cool. PayBear.
Okay, yeah.
I think they support DAI now, right?
Yeah. Hey, Matthew, how are you?
Hey, everybody. Doing well, thanks. Yep, we will be supporting DAI with the launch of our multi-currency wallet upcoming early February.
Right now, you guys do the gift cards, right?
No, so we're a merchant payment gateway. So merchants who want to accept crypto as a form of payment for goods and services. We're looking to build out a whole host of decentralized finance products, and DAI and MakerDAO are going to be kind of at the core of that suite.
That's awesome. Last time I talked to you guys, you were, I mean, it was a while ago. It was like at EdCon, aside from just the Rocket Chat. There was, you guys were trying to figure out basically how to track payments. Well, it was two things. One, how to initiate payments for people that didn't have Ether in their wallet. And then how to allow merchants. So like, let's say that they accept payment in Ether, how to actually allow them to differentiate between sales instead of having it all just go to one wallet where it sits. Did you guys figure that out?
Yeah, so we've made some pretty big strides from that point in time. That was actually before my time, but we've got all that figured out, and that's currently working in our product today.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah,
I'm looking
super
forward
cool.
to checking it out.
Yeah, I had mixed you guys up. I remember that there was some other payment processor that started off with just offering DAI funded gift cards, and I think that on the back end they kind of just funded them with US dollars or whatever that they did. But I guess it wasn't
That sounds interesting. I think we'd like to integrate them. So if you think of the name, let me know.
Yeah, it's I'm gonna go double check in our resource repository because I definitely remember I added them in there, but it was like 4 or 5 months ago, so my memory is like terrible. But yeah, going back to Ashley's question of who else is here and why they're here, I see Carter wrote in the chat in the beginning of the call that he's based out of Chicago. He's an independent developer and he's been experimenting with automating his CDP for the last several weeks. So can you tell us more about that, Carter? Are you still here?
We can't hear you, Carter.
Yeah, I think you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
There we go. Cool. Yeah, headset's giving me some issues, but yeah. So recently I did some automation of my own trading. So I've just got an account on Binance with a couple different coins, and it just kind of rebalances those daily and calculates taxes and all that. But so now that I kind of finished that and I'm bored again, I'm trying to kind of calculate the risks associated with the CDP. I've had one open for a couple months now, but trying to kind of calculate the actual risk and defining what kind of dollar amount risk is associated is really tough, especially once you start kind of leveraging a couple times and redepositing. So I've been using a lot of Python to kind of start to see what would make sense. I want to make a CDP that can be that I can actually value the risk associated, so that way I can have a CDP leveraged at the best kind of liquidation ratio, so that we can get the most return with the least amount of possible risk. But it's a lot of math, and so I've got a long way to go on that. So I'm just happy to listen to you guys and to hopefully help out in this ecosystem any way I can. So
yeah, cool, man. Thanks for being here. Do you have any like standout insights that have been popping out to you since you've been playing with it?
Nothing too much. Something I realized yesterday, because I'm just trying to do some basic CDP work now before I go into the weeds of leveraging at a certain ratio. So what I was kind of testing was just keeping a ratio between 175% and 225, and just kind of calculating the how much I'd have to redeposit in ETH to raise that ratio. It was interesting because just with the initial deposit of like $5,000, looking at the simulations, if it goes under that that liquidation ratio and I have to rebalance or to redeposit, something I found interesting is that you can basically just look at the current dollar value of your CDP and then would deposit enough to get back to that $5,000 initial value. So I'm just doing a lot of experimenting now. There's a lot that's going to be going into this, and I'll probably do some kind of overall analysis on what kind of leverage you'd want at different kind of market fluctuations. So definitely in the early stages, but there's definitely going to be more to come.
Nice, man. Are you planning to post any of your analysis publicly?
Oh yeah, of course. Everything's on my GitHub. I don't try to do anything public. I recently became self-employed by choice, so I have a lot more time to do this now. So
congratulations, man. Very happy for you.
I just hope ETH starts going back up, because I don't know how long I can run on my savings here.
Well, hey, man, if you automate your trading just right, you know.
Exactly, that's the hope. With whatever funds I have left.
Yeah. Andrew Bourbon says he's here because Nikolai brought him here. It's a bit of an inside joke. Nikolai is one of the founders of MakerDAO, so Andrew's a OG. So Eric Green, he's a consultant data scientist for McKinsey, and he's looking to transition into a full-time crypto role. Yeah, that's really cool. Definitely need more data scientists in the space. At MakerDAO, we actually just hired this girl, Madison. She's our quant AI data scientist person. She's actually going to be participating in the risk team very heavily. So that's exciting. Akiva Dubrovsky, he's a regular on our calls. He's worked in cryptos for his past 2 jobs, but not anymore. Akiva, what are you doing nowadays? Oh, Akiva, I think you're muted. All right. Oh, he's a student. Ah, got it. Nice, very cool. All right, yeah. So let me see. Let me go through the chat and see what else I might have missed. Yeah, Marcin says he did a few internet projects since 1996. Now he's on a gap year. Yeah, definitely good to have you, Marcin. Lawrence G is part of Agile Alpha. They've been building apps like Whale Watch and ChainSpark. Cool. So there's actually a couple of questions that I missed in the chat. So Alex asks if anybody from the Maker team is going to be at Davos this week. Ashley, do you know anything about that?
I don't think so, but I would ask Jess. She kind of knows everybody's schedule, but I don't think anyone is going to Davos.
Yeah, I didn't hear anybody in our internal chats talking much about it either. All right, another question. What is the risk of DeFi spreading faster than what Ethereum can practically support? Well, I mean, I can kind of take a shot at that. So, the biggest things with finance is, the biggest thing with finance is really risk management. So, if you see sort of usage outpacing what the entire ecosystem can really handle in terms of liquidity, in terms of like all of these sort of associated variables, you might see things like an emergency shutdown happen, for example. You know, if way too much Ethereum gets locked in, and you know the maker stakeholders, for example, decide that it's far too risky, you might see that many of these decentralized finance apps kind of shut down. But I'm not really 100% sure. I'm talking way out of my depth here.
Yeah, I mean, to just kind of follow on to that, I think that, you know, there are some very clear things that make sense given the kind of scale of Ethereum right now. You know, CDP, you don't necessarily need that to happen like that, right? For things like micropayments or, you know, anything that involves, obviously there's no like privacy right on Ethereum yet. So we'll see like layer 2 solutions. We've already seen we had some ZK DAI recently which is pretty exciting. So that's interesting. And then, we've got like POA X DAI chain, which is, kind of an interesting solution that allows you to actually use DAI as the native currency and as the gas instead of going to the main chain. So, obviously plasma implementations are being worked on, all those things. There are some scaling issues, but in general, my gut feeling right now is that it's not growing fast enough yet to the point where it's a legitimate concern, just in terms of like being restricted by the technology. And I don't think it's likely to get to that point, anytime soon. In the future, if Ethereum can't scale, then that'll be another conversation. But so far, it's growing quickly, but it's not growing so quickly that Ethereum isn't going to be able to handle it for right now. Good question, though.
Yeah, definitely a good question. I haven't thought too much about it.
Lawrence here. Thank you for Lawrence. That. Yeah, just wanted to say hi. Thank you for actually addressing my question. Well, the reason I'm asking is because we already know this happened back in December 2017 with the kitties, right? And then it's not unimaginable that it could happen again, considering, let's say, DAI, or there's some app being built on top of Maker, and all of a sudden, like, it becomes like hugely popular. Let's say maybe Paybear or something. A company like that, like a payment or remittance app or something, and then all of a sudden you realize that everything looks great, but the infrastructure cannot handle the amount of transactions or something. And then obviously what everyone's going to try to do really quickly, start looking at layer 2 solutions or something, and try to figure out, okay, how can we scale this like super quick, because that the main infrastructure is not going to be able to support it.
Right, and also you have like that huge drop off of actual users. So once everybody sees that the transaction fees are through the roof and the network is congested, the only people really trying to push through are people that are trying to maybe defend their CDP, right? But everybody else is kind of like, the usability falls off a cliff, and people kind of get turned off from actually using these things, and they stop using them until the network kind of grows in step. But yeah,
exactly.
What do you think about that, Ashley?
Yeah, like I say, I haven't seen any evidence that although the number of people using DeFi products is growing, I haven't seen any evidence that it's like seriously outpacing, Ethereum's ability to scale for the moment. And I think things like state channels are going to be interesting and helpful. And yeah, basically it's going to be all about layer 2 until the main chain is to the point where it can handle all of that traffic. And even if the main chain does scale, I think that most of these things will end up being in layer 2 solutions anyway, just for efficiency and gas sake.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
And it kind of relates to that. I've done a lot of research on the whole Constantinople, the different implementations that they're adding, especially with Create 2. It'll allow you guys to create these basically accounts in advance and not have to add all of those initial transactions and gas fees for beginning users. Is that something you guys have also been looking at?
Yeah, I'm in the elevator, so I might cut out here a little bit. But as far as that's like kind of not something that we're that focused on just sort of like the Maker core team. But I know that like InstaDApp and some of the applications that are building on top of Maker are looking to use some of these EIPs in their development as a tool in the toolbox to make some of these things a little bit easier for people.
Yeah, I definitely think overall it'll help with some of the kind of scaling issues with onboarding the like initial users, because you don't have to require transactions for people to kind of interact or just overall just look at the MakerDAO. So I'm excited to see how that'll kind of help improve overall speed and kind of congestion.
Me too.
Well, actually, in the article that I mentioned earlier in the call from InstaDApp, they actually mentioned that because all of their sort of DAI is pooled, they could draw on the eventual functionality of the DAI savings rate to offset like transaction fees for users through those like metadata transactions. Like I forget exactly the technical details of it, but they could actually use that small interest on their pool of DAI to offset user transactions. Even if it's not fully, it would be a huge user experience gain.
I agree.
But yeah, I think in terms of the network getting congested, I doubt it's going to be really from a DeFi app. I think most likely you're probably going to see it either from a game that didn't use a layer 2 solution, or like from some runaway viral app that like really might like screw things up for a couple weeks, and then the network eventually will die down and that app might switch over to some other solution. But obviously this is all conjecture. But yeah, I doubt it's going to come from a DeFi app though.
I gotta hop, you guys, but nice to meet all of you, and thanks for coming. I put my email in the chat, so feel free to reach out whenever. And yeah, keep spreading the good word. Thanks for the support, y'all.
Take
Bye.
care, Ash. Nice seeing you. All right, so there was one other question from Eric that I didn't get to. What's happening with the TradeShift partnership? What product-specific integrations are in development with them? So I am not a part of BizDev or the integrations team, so I'm not 100% sure how to answer that. Although I do know that they have been working on actually. I think the last I heard, they were doing like a very small sample size of like testing, and they're still trying to get all of the backend infrastructure for like what they're doing through. But again, I would need to probably. I wish actually could have stayed here to answer that. Yeah, that's right. They did actually mention that on a recent call. You're right, Kiva. So Matthew, you're asking about the stable fund. So actually, the stable fund is semi a thing. It's currently being sort of structured and made a lot more sort of streamlined. So right now it's kind of on pause, but you're gonna see more on that very soon. But yeah, in general, we're still very supportive of giving grants to complementary partners in the space. So developers, content creators, even community members with micro grants. So we are definitely still in support and like aiming towards that conceptual goal of having something like the stable fund, and it is coming. So definitely look out for that. Yeah, for sure. Marcin, this is new. Giveth. With DAI, the Giveth app becomes a more powerful tool. Oh yeah, I think that they actually just posted that. Yeah, they literally just posted that during the call. Yeah, so let me read this. The Giveth community is thrilled to announce that our DApp, currently in beta, now supports payments in the form of the DAI stablecoin, thanks to a generous 10,000 euro grant from the MakerDAO Community Development Fund. Yeah, there you go. So now we are doing some grants not under the stable fund, but under this new initiative we're doing, the Community Development Fund. So definitely look out. We're gonna have a lot more public communications about it soon. But as you see, it's sort of trickling through because we are actively trying to get the back end of it sort of sorted and clear. Daniel Ong asks, do you have recommendations for contributing open source to the project? Any beginner issues, tickets that would help a newcomer learn a lot? So Daniel, you could actually join our Rocket Chat and go into the dev channel. I know our GitHub is all like public. I know that only some, yeah, I think you would need to talk to the developers. Even if you talk to, here, you can message Nick. Nick can probably help you with that if you want to poke your nose in some of the stuff the devs are working on.
Something that I've done to help with contributing to open source repos is just looking at the overall kind of readmes and seeing if there's any way I can improve it. Just I think there's one I just even added hyperlinks. It wasn't even much of an addition, but being able to just kind of help people out with something simple like that, it kind of gets you more involved. And it may not mean much to them, but it's definitely a step in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to add to that, even if you're not a developer and you want to contribute to open source projects, like here at MakerDAO, we have a couple of things like here it is. Yeah, I posted in the chat. It's our awesome MakerDAO repo. So it literally just has a ton of resources. And I'm always looking for people to either add things that we at community development might have missed, edits, format changes, anything that you see that can improve that repo. You don't have to be a developer to do it. All you need is a very basic understanding of how to submit a pull request on GitHub, and you can do it. Or you can even message me, and I'll just do it myself. But yeah, suggestions on that are helpful. But in general, Maker, there's a million ways to help. Even criticism helps. Concerns help. Participating in community discussions help. But if you're specifically a developer, definitely get in touch with our developers, and they're not hard to get in touch with. Just join us on our Rocket Chat and check out the dev channel. So yeah. All right, let me go through the chat. Let me see what else I might have missed. Trade shift, yeah, okay, I covered that. Yeah, I guess I covered pretty much everything. All right, so I am gonna leave it open just for a few more minutes. If you guys have any other questions and things you'd like me to comment on or point you to, definitely feel free to add. Okay, so Akiva writes, there have been a lot of tokenization companies popping up lately. What I'd like to know very roughly is, can you provide an estimate of what portion of the Maker has partnership deals in the pipeline for, or how many there's a relationship with? All right, so I'd need to talk to probably the biz dev team. I know that in general, we have a couple of hundred partnerships already, not all of them public, obviously. But on the side of tokenization companies, I know that there was talk and interest of Harbor. I think that the biz dev team is in contact with Harbor. But yeah, I'm really not sure. I can't really answer that for you in in the way that you want me to, Akiva, sorry. But I know that any tokenization company that has its weight in salt and that is actually doing something interesting, we're definitely going to be talking to them, because the first line of interest for us is getting new collateral, especially collateral that is not correlated to the crypto markets on board, because that's going to make a stronger underlying collateral portfolio. So definitely, they are not flying under our radar. We are like a hawk looking over the entire space, looking for a good collateral. And definitely, if you have any tokenization companies that you think stand out, message them to us, message them to me, post about them on Reddit. Make some noise. Glad to hear it. Yeah, I heard good things about Polymath. I personally haven't done an enormous amount of in-depth research into them, but I've heard their name bounced around a lot. Yeah, that's right, Lawrence. I saw your post. I think I actually responded to it. But yeah, home equity as collateral for a CDP. So that actually gets really tricky, because houses are non-fungible. They're their own assets. You have to consider a lot of things, like how do you have recourse for that? Like that's one of the biggest things to consider when you want to add collateral into our system. So recourse for ETH basically is handled through, right now, the liquidity providing contract. So if a loan defaults, the collateral seized, put up for sale, 3% discount, and basically takes the debt plus a 13% penalty and returns any excess collateral that's left over. But for something like a house, or like a line of a loan or a line of credit, or somebody else's debt, like it gets a little bit more hairy. But
I'm gonna contribute to that too. Something that I was kind of thinking.
Yeah.
And it's just when it comes to housing evaluations, it's really subjective, and it's not just like a defined price. And housing prices fluctuate, but it's hard to define that from one minute to the next. And so another kind of issue that I would think is how you'd be able to know what your house should be priced at real time to calculate that liquidation ratio. So I definitely think there's a lot of tough ways or tough decisions to make in this.
Yeah, and not only that, there's also the whole regulatory framework that you have to deal with, because if you're going to have something like a house or real estate or any like regulated securities or investment vehicles on MakerDAO, you're going to have sort of a walled garden section of MakerDAO, I guess, with its own recourse, with its own because the way Harbor does it with REITs and real estate, they basically do all the KYC and everything up front, and then they let you participate in their sort of walled garden of somewhat more liquid markets for these REITs, and what they do is they block everything together, so you have more of a liquid asset, because a house, you can't really do anything with a house, but if you're a guy that owns a bunch of buildings, I mean, yeah, I don't know, I'm kind of also out of my depth here, but yeah, tokenizing housing debt is very interesting. But again, you think about how MakerDAO might evolve and how a lot of these DeFi products might evolve. You might have things that are totally open to the public, like Ethereum and DAI, and other cryptocurrencies that might not be deemed securities, and that are somewhat deemed safe by the regulators to happen in public. Then you're gonna have things like REITs and maybe housing debt, maybe your car. Who knows? Who knows? But all these things are gonna happen over time. I honestly don't expect to see that happen in the next few years. I think there's a lot of stuff that has to get dealt with before that happens.
So what do you think? What do you think would be the first type of collateral that's going to be added to MCD?
I mean, personally, I think probably Digix. I mean, but even though, even Digix, right? They're very low liquidity. It's probably not going to be a high debt ceiling. And again, just want to reiterate, this is just my own personal opinions. It doesn't reflect MakerDAO as an organization. But as a Maker token holder, Digix sounds pretty nice to have, but it's just not going to be a huge addition because of the low volume. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't really given too much thought to it that I'd feel comfortable giving an answer. But besides Digix, I don't know. Really don't know.
I'm just curious. What is the conversation currently around the collateral that's going to be added as into MCD? I mean, Digis is definitely maybe one consideration, but what are some others?
Off of the top of my head, let me see if I can help. Let me see if I can give you an adequate answer to that. Just the problem is, I don't have a list in front of me, and the conversations around it have really been more about the methodology of actually assessing an asset. So if it's not Digix and you want to go something that's popular ERC20 token, like Filecoin, or something that's ERC20, right? You're gonna have to do an assessment on it. You're gonna want to do a qualitative assessment on the team, maybe on the token economics of their project, et cetera, et cetera. And then you're gonna have to do a quantitative analysis on the actual trading, on the liquidity profile of the coin, on the total supply, on you have to kind of configure all of the risks, and you have to see what you can do with it. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of there's been a lot of talks, but I'm kind of having trouble thinking off the top of my head really good collaterals. And mostly that's because I'm also pretty concerned that ERC20 tokens, a lot of them are really don't have much, I guess, substance to them. I just don't
I
really
agree.
think most of them are great.
I completely agree with you. I just don't think they hold much value.
Yeah.
There's such. I mean, Ether is already a huge risk. forget about other ERC20 tokens. That's why I was even thinking about home equity, which is something that is solid
Right.
and people can count on, right?
Well, that's why
mortgage debt is solid debt, right?
yes.
A lot of these mortgages are guaranteed by the government, right? Like at least in North America, I mean.
Well, that's why, like, I find our partnerships like TradeShift really interesting, because what they're gonna do is they're gonna take bundles. So like they're a financing company in Europe, and if I remember correctly, the way that Rune described it was they're gonna take basically bundles of these accounts receivable, basically debt, and they're gonna use it as collateral, because they're going to be able to use their data, because everybody's on their platform, to kind of rate their customers' own like internal credit ratings. They're going to have their own credit ratings. They're going to have different. Well, I don't really know how to explain it, but yeah, it's not going to be like an individual non-fungible token. It's probably going to be transacted more in terms of blocks of debt. But yeah. ERC20s and cryptos, I don't know. If there's like a really good, ERC20 version of Bitcoin that's like reliable and like doesn't have a lot of or like an extreme amount of risk, I'd be definitely for it. I don't know much about wrapped Bitcoin. I read about it a bit. I know that we are active participants. At least a couple people on our biz dev team are active participants in their DAO. But I know a lot of people have expressed concerns about the centralization and a lot of the risks involved with WBTC. But again, these things are going to get better over time. Maybe WBTC is the solution of right now, but then you might have in 6 months that they do something that drastically decreases their risk, and it becomes a really great collateral. But again, Bitcoin is very much tied in with Ethereum in terms of its price direction. So although it would be good for scaling, for stability and for security, like non-correlated assets are obviously better. So tokenized invoices are great. And other things like that. Yeah, off-chain assets like digits that are represented on chain are great. You might even see synthetic assets eventually. So if there's going to be a MCD is a multi-collateral DAI. It's the next version of the DAI credit system that's going to be coming out this year. Yeah. Yeah, so Jordan Crandall writes, basically, I don't see all other collateral types making up any more than 10% of all CDPs if multi-collateral DAI launched today. So multi-collateral DAI doesn't really matter until cooler things start to get tokenized. Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree. 100% agree. But multi-collateral DAI will matter in a couple of ways, because number one, the way that collateral is sold is going to change. So there's going to be an auction mechanism. So right now there is no auction mechanism. It's just a direct sale through the liquidity providing contracts, and it takes an Oracle price discount through the boom bust spread. And that's the way that liquidations are handled now. But with the auction mechanism, you're going to have a lot more organic price discovery, and it's just going to be a lot fairer and a lot more interesting. True, yeah. And also no path. Exactly. So maker holders are actually going to benefit more, because that liquidation penalty is not going to go to PETH holders. It's going to go to maker holders. And actually, PETH holders in the life of single collateral DAI made, I think, like 10 or 15 times more than maker holders. If you consider like stability fees versus penalties paid, PETH holders definitely won out in how much money they made versus maker holders. But again, technically, maker holders bear no risk in single collateral DAI, because it's PETH that's issued, not maker. Yeah. Yeah, multi-collateral DAI is going to do a lot of really great stuff. But again, yeah, once more collateral types come online that are interesting, that's when multi-collateral DAI will get interesting. But in the meantime, you're going to see, I think Ether is going to be a really sort of predominant collateral for a long time. Daniel asks, for multi-collateral DAI, could you point us to some resources to learn about price oracles for non-ETH collateral? So I think that the current oracle system is fairly well documented by our guy Mariano, and I think that it's sort of a proof of concept and sort of like first version for non-ETH collateral, because if you think about like non-ETH collateral and what you need for a good Oracle for that, you need like multiple price feeds. You need probably like several people providing those price feeds. And then and actually oracles are also going to change. I forgot. They're not going to be doing 15 transactions per update to the price feed. They're going to do everything through Scuttlebutt, so they could batch everything and just do. So they're going to be a lot lighter. But actually, it might be interesting to have Mariano on a call, maybe next week or in the future, to talk about oracles if you guys are interested. Yeah, Daniel. Yeah, definitely. Cool. So I'll ping him and see if he wants to come on. Probably will. He loves talking about that stuff. Is there a list somewhere where people can propose collateral for multi-collateral DAI? There isn't a aggregated list anywhere, actually. You could probably post on Reddit and see what the current sort of consensus in our community is about that. Because I know it's definitely changed a lot in the last year. People thought Digix was going to be a lot bigger. People thought OMG was going to be good, but OMG is not very good. But yeah, post on Reddit. I know a lot of people are over there, and I'll definitely post my response there. It'll be easier to think about it than just to kind of talk on the call. Because if I think about it, I'll come up with more ideas. I'll be able to draft a better response for you guys. All right, so we're coming on 4 minutes to the hour. Let me know if you guys have any other questions, anything you guys want to talk about. All right, so thank you guys for coming on the call this week. Yeah, request to have at least one BizDev person on the call. Yeah, that definitely. I'll ping Ashley or Greg or even Jess. Jess is actually part of the BizDev team. But yeah, definitely. So this week we're kind of light on people, but yeah, Kiva will do. Is there a development call or is it just Rocket Chat? So we do a bunch of internal calls. There is no like open source dev call. The only two open calls we have are this call, which is just sort of an update and conversation with the community. And then we have the governance and risk calls, which is very much focused on risk assessment, collateral types, how to improve governance, et cetera, et cetera. So we actually, this last one, we talked about the stability fee, and there's a really good discussion thread going on Reddit. So definitely drop a comment in there if you have anything interesting to say. Yeah, nice meeting you, Lawrence. Take care. Yeah, guys, have a great one. We'll see you guys next week, and I will see if I can keep up the standard of having at least one biz dev, one integrations, and then a couple community managers on here. That's for sure. Yeah. Thank you, Kiva, as usual, for your awesome questions and input. All right, guys, take care.